Now, I know there must have been any number of really cute stories about Jesus' childhood that Luke, the physician, could have shared. Luke, the evangelist, is known as a doctor, not a PhD or a phony doctor, but a real doctor, an MD. I'm not sure where he got his degree, but anyway, he had a prescription for us with this story, and it made me wonder as I thought, why did he write this prescription? Why, of all the stories about Jesus' childhood, we got this? We don't hear about his first word, which might well have been Leviticus, Deuteronomy, or Conundrum. Those were impressive, I thought. Very good. Maybe there could have been a story about Jesus the child saving the family picnic by, miraculously parting the ants and everything was fine. I just figured there must have been some cool stuff. I have no idea if Jesus earned extra money for the family by walking people's fish, But anyway, but it's this story. It involves Jesus as a 12-year-old, which has to be just about the most annoying age to be. The great writer Isaac Asimov, the science writer, expert in everything, recalled how one time he was brought in to speak to a group of 12-year-olds. And one of the boys raised his hand and said, "Can you tell me the name of the nearest star?" And Asimov knew that it was a trick question, because most people would say it was Alpha Centauri, but it's not Alpha Centauri. It's actually Proxima Centauri because it's part of this 3-star system, and it's just a little bit closer to the Earth than Alpha Centauri. And so he gave the right answer. And the little 12-year-old looked up and said, "I thought the closest star was the sun." As he said, you can't win with 12-year-olds. But on the other hand, 12 was a little different in those times too. You came of age as 13. And so, Jesus in a certain sense is almost an adult. But he gives the classic answer in one of the most frightening situations for a parent. I knew I was here. I knew I was safe. Those of you that were here for Camp Mac Sunday earlier this year heard my son Francisco tell, his story back at Camp Laverne, the Brethren camp out in the West, and how all of us were walking, and he got separated from the group and found himself lost. Every parent's nightmare, what makes the nightmare worse for me and Jenny was we didn't notice he was missing either, just like Mary and Joseph, going a whole day. Little Francisco had wandered out to the highway, was a car stopped, picked him up, took him back to the camp, And then we found out we were dumb parents, that somehow we'd gotten separated. And you're always feeling so blessed when a nightmarish story has a happy ending. Well, this story here, as I said, is the only story we really have from his childhood. And maybe, one of the best examples we can set for other people is a bad example. Whatever was going on in Jesus' head, it certainly taught us, and maybe it taught him a lesson, how important it is to communicate. In our own age, where people can have cell phones, can text or Twitter or write an email or just contact each other, even now, it's very common not to hear from each other. When contacting each other is very easy, and to wonder what has happened to a loved one. So perhaps we are blessed with a bad example, which is a good example for us of what not to do. But I think the real example, and the reason that Luke, the doctor, has written this prescription, comes in the dialogue between Mary and Jesus. They walk a day out towards Nazareth, realize that, walking as a large group for safety's sake on this 3-day journey, that Jesus is not with the children, not with the women, not with the men. And so then they have to walk a whole day back, that's day 2, and then 3 days of searching in Jerusalem, in the big city, not knowing where he could possibly be, only to find him in the temple. Thank heavens for Jesus' little sister Emerson, who kept her eyes open. And Mary says, "Child, what are you doing to us? Look, your father and I were worried as we sought you, as we looked for you." You know, Mary talked about her feelings. She didn't say, "You are thoughtless, inconsiderate, and the worst child ever." She might have been thinking it. She didn't call Jesus a name. She didn't put him in a box. "You are a thoughtless person." She talked about her feelings. "What you did worried me. It scared us." And really, that's the most important thing, because every time we call somebody a name, every time we put somebody in a box, whether it's a member of a family, the member of our church, a person in another political party, a person in another country, somebody of another faith, every time we put them in a box, we have described what they are, and that does not allow for change. You know, in the ancient world, it was believed that you didn't change. Great people were born great, grew up great, lived great, and died great. That was the essence of biography. Evil people were born as evil people, were raised evil, lived evil, and died evil. The good news of Jesus Christ was astounding in the ancient world, and I think sometimes it's so astounding we don't get it either. We hurt each other. We do stuff we want to take back, but we can change. We can be transformed. And one of the things that transforms us is getting inside someone else's skin and realizing how we made them feel. We can change. Now, it takes Jesus a second to get it. Why were you looking for me? Didn't you know I need to be in my Father's house? Yeah, right. That's exactly the first thing we thought. That's why it took us 3 days to find you in Jerusalem. But she doesn't call him a little twerp right after that. She's already told him how she feels. And he goes back. I think he gets it. You know, sometimes we want Jesus fully divine, and sometimes we want him fully human. But like in this story, we kind of get a bit of both. And sometimes it takes a little bit for the human part of us to catch up with the part of us that's walking around in the clouds, or in my case, in a daze. And Jesus goes back. He is transformed, and as God present among us, he seems to learn something about what it means to be human, what it means to care for each other, what it means to love one so much that to be separated causes you to feel real fright and fear. As Rex and Jill told us in their children's story, you look for somebody at the fair, and instead of shaking them with an inch of their life, you hug them. You don't say the thing that you were ready to say. You let the love trump all. I'm glad God is patient with us. Let's be patient with each other. Let's share our feelings with each other when we are hurt, rather than letting it smolder. Let's not call each other names and put each other in boxes, and that goes not only within here in our families, our church family, but in the world as well. I think it'll help us to get through 2016 a lot easier if we kind of assume everybody's human, everybody is worthy of God's love, and that if Jesus could mess up, Mary could forgive him. And if Jesus could mess up, we're allowed to mess up too. It will be okay. It says Jesus grew up in wisdom and grace and in appearance before God and before people. we're all of us a work in progress. As I close, I would add one more thing for all the benefit of all of our young people here, and I include our young adults in that. You know, all of us older folks are maybe in the situation of being Mary and Joseph. We don't get it. You know you're safe. You know you're well. You're the ones that are charting a course through this digital world while the rest of us are scratching our head. Be a little patient with us, and remember to text us, to email us, and to call us, and recognize our concerns as our love for you. And we're so grateful that you love us as well. Thank you for Mr. Luke, wherever you are, for picking this story. I think it would have been cuter to hear what Jesus' first words were, or something else that he did when he was a real little kid. But this story is probably a whole lot more helpful, and it's going to help us all to grow in favor with the Lord. Amen.